and chapter 24. 2 Samuel, chapter 24, which is the last chapter in that particular book. So for the sake of time, I'm just going to paraphrase the first few verses here. So King David, decides that he is going to do a census, and he's going to count the number of people that are in his kingdom. And there was a man called Joab that he tasked with this particular thing, to go out and number the people. But Joab didn't want to do it. He thought, and probably rightly so, that that's not what the Lord would want. It turns out that's not what the Lord wanted. But David did it anyway, and this guy goes out and, wants him to do it, so he goes out and counts the people, and he's obedient to the king there, and goes and does this thing. And he went to all of these different places, all the way through the whole country. It took him 9 months and 20 days, we read, to do this, and they ended up with 1.3 million soldiers. They counted males, soldiers. 1.3 million is the number that they came to. And as soon as he's done it and he's told this number, David is repentant, and he thinks, I did the wrong thing. It's not what I should have done. So in verse 10, it said, David's heart smote him after he had numbered the people. And David said to the Lord, I have sinned greatly in that I have done. And now I beseech thee, O Lord, take away the iniquity of thy servant, for I have done very foolishly. And so he's repentant about the whole thing. And there was a prophet called Gad, person's name, Gad, and basically said, okay, you're repentant. I'm going to give you a choice of your punishment. You can choose one of these three things. You can either have 7 years of famine, you can flee from your enemies for 3 months while they chase after you, or you can have 3 days of pestilence in the land of Israel. Choose your poison kind of thing. Which one do you want? And David, in verse 14, said to Gad, I am in a great strait. Let us fall now into the hand of the Lord, for his mercies are great, and let me fall into the hand of man. And so the Lord sent a pestilence upon Israel from the morning even unto the appointed time, and there died of the people of Dan, even to Beersheba, 70,000 men. 70,000 men died. He basically said, well, the first two, I'm sort of at the mercies of the ground, and I'm at the mercy of people pursuing me. Let's put ourselves into the mercies of the Lord, and that's why he picked that. The best course of action was to fall into God's mercy rather than something else. And so 70,000 people die. In verse 16, when the angel stretched out his hand upon Jerusalem to destroy it, the Lord repented him of the evil, and said to the angel that destroyed the people, it is enough. Stay now thine hand. And the angel of the Lord was by the threshing place of Araunah, the Jebusite. And so imminently Jerusalem's going to be destroyed. The angel is there. He's stretching out his hand to destroy Jerusalem, and the Lord said, okay, enough. You can stop there. And so Jerusalem is spared at this time. Verse 17, and David spoke to the Lord when he saw the angel that smote the people, and said, Lo, I have sinned, and I have done wickedly, but these sheep, what have they done? Let thy hand, I pray thee, be against me and against my father's house. Leave the people alone. They haven't done anything. It's all my fault, is basically what he's saying. Punish me, don't punish them. And Gad came that day to David and said to him, "Go up, rear an altar unto the Lord in the threshing floor of Araunah the Jebusite." And so where the angel had stopped the destruction was at this particular place, this threshing floor of this particular person, which, as it turns out, where this threshing floor is, where they're sifting wheat and everything, is ultimately where Solomon's temple is built down the track. This is the spot that it happened. In verse 19, and David, according to the saying of Gad, went up as the Lord commanded, and Araunah looked and saw the king and his servants coming towards him. And Araunah went out and bowed himself before the king on his face upon the ground. And Araunah said, "Wherefore is my lord the king come to his servant?" And David said, "To buy the threshing floor of thee, to build an altar unto the Lord, that the plague may be stayed from the people." So what are you doing here, David? I'm here to buy your land, your threshing floor, because the Lord has told me to build an altar here and sacrifice upon this particular place. In verse 22, and Araunah said to David, "Let my lord the king take and offer up what seems good to him. Behold, there be oxen for burnt sacrifice, and threshing instruments, and other instruments of the oxen for wood. All these things did Araunah as a king give unto the king. And Araunah said to the king, The Lord thy God accept thee." So he said, no, you don't have to buy it. I'll just give it to you. Here's my land, here's my oxen, here's everything. You can do with it as you will. In verse 24, but the king, David, said to Araunah, "No, but I will surely buy it of thee at a price. Neither will I offer burnt offerings unto the Lord my God of that which does cost me nothing." So David bought the threshing floor and the oxen for 50 shekels of silver. And David built there an altar unto the Lord, and offered burnt offerings and peace offerings. So the Lord was entreated for the land, and the plague was stayed from Israel. And so, why did he do this? Why would he have done this particular thing? He was given it for nothing. He goes, "I don't want it for nothing. I want to pay for it." And so you sort of think about that a bit. Why would he do such a thing? And so he bought it, the floor and the oxen, not because he had to, because he was given it, but he did it because he wanted the offering to be meaningful. He wanted it to cost something. He wanted the sacrifice to have a cost. He said there he didn't want to offer sacrifices that cost him nothing. And so it's a principle, really. If you look through the Bible, there's lots of instances of this. We're not going to have time to look at many of them at all. But it sort of symbolises the importance of a sacrifice with dedication, with commitment, with something of yourself, some skin in the game, if you want to call it that, not by simply sort of just giving it away, just some sort of meaningless thing. It had to have some meaning behind it. He wanted it to show the value that he placed upon what he was doing, what he was asked to do, and the sincerity of it. They were sort of his motivations here. So this sacrifice and the commitment sort of went hand in hand. It was no small gift that this guy was giving. It would have been quite costly to him, 50 shekels of silver. You imagine it's quite an expensive thing. And he offered it just freely. But David realised, if I take this land, if I take it and I take the animals, then it wasn't really worship. There had to be some kind of a cost there. Like I said, this particular spot becomes the site on Mount Moriah where Solomon would build the temple in Jerusalem, a little bit down the track. It was interesting too that it was on a threshing floor, where if you've ever sort of seen a threshing floor, it's a big sort of area, generally very flat, generally very hard, and ground, and they sort of get the wheat and the chaff, and they throw it all up into the air with like a pitchfork kind of thing, and the wind comes, blows the chaff away, and you're left with the wheat. You're left with the good stuff, and so a threshing floor represents a place of separation, a place where the Bible even uses the term, to separate the wheat from the chaff. Well, how did they do that? Well, they did it with this thing called a place called a threshing floor. And so the harvest was prepared, the good stuff was prepared by separating the useless straw, which you couldn't eat, and the grain. So you'd be left with something valuable. You'd be left with something good, something that was worth having. It's interesting when Jesus came to be baptised of John there, in Matthew chapter 3, John said, "Whose fan is in his hand, and he will thoroughly purge his floor and gather his wheat into the garner, but he will burn up the chaff with unquenchable fire." So even as Jesus is being introduced, this idea of a separation is sort of talked about. The fan that's going to do the separating, he's got it. It's in his hand there. Threshing floors were often made on flat, hard surfaces. You sort of didn't want it in sort of a muddy, yucky place. It had to be sort of on a fairly hard, flat surface. Think of a strong foundation, a good foundation that the Lord gives to us. And they were also put in places where the wind would blow. There's no point having it in a non-windy place, because the whole idea of it is going to do the separation. So they were often in an elevated place, maybe the top of a hill or something like that. We think about John 3, which we read on Sunday. The Spirit likened to the wind. It's going to do that. It's going to do that separating. The Spirit is going to do that separating. The Bible talks about the city on a hill, that we're meant to shine out. We're meant to be influencing people to, hey, look at this. Not us, but look at the Lord. A place where the Spirit can shine, where they can be separated from their sin, and we can be separated from the influence of the world there. And so there's going to be that separation. The Lord wanted to separate out a people unto himself. The flesh and the spirit, they're at enmity with each other. They can't be together. They can't go together. They're at war basically with each other. And so this wind, this place of where a spiritual threshing floor is happening, is going to cause that separation. And David knew that the sacrifice had to come at a cost. There had to be something in it that was worthwhile, that was valuable, something profound there. Now, if you go to the New Testament, we're going to go to Luke 14, if you would turn there with me. Luke 14. And verse 25. Luke 14:25, and it says, "And there went great multitudes with him, and he turned and said to them." And so here's Jesus. He's going along. He's talked to them about. He's actually just finished talking to them about people that are making excuses. I've got this, I've got that. I've got oxen, and I've got to go and prove them, and all this kind of thing. And so he just talked to them about that sort of thing. And he's walking along, and he stops and he turns. And so he's going to say something to them. You would imagine, or everything Jesus said was profound, but he's making a point of stopping and turning around and facing them. And so I guess the thought was this multitude were following him, but were they really? Were they really? Were they just walking along behind him? Was there anything? Did they have any sort of commitment to what they were doing, or was it a curiosity perhaps, or maybe they thought, well, we're hungry, he might give us some fish or something, what he was going to do there. So he stops them. In verse 26, if any man come to me and hate not his father and mother and wife and children and brethren and sisters, yea, and his own life also, he cannot be my disciple. Now, of course, Jesus is not telling us to go out and hate our parents or anything like that. It's a relative thing. In comparison, we can't follow the Lord if anything, not these things or anything, are going to take priority over the things of God. And whosoever does not bear his cross and come after me cannot be my disciple. You can't just tag along. You've got to have a commitment. You've got to realise that what you're doing is going to have a cost. You can't just sort of float on through your walk in the Lord. In verse 28, for which of you, intending to build a tower, sits not down first and counts the cost, whether he have sufficient to finish it? And so even in the natural, you're going to build something, okay? You're going to build a house maybe. Okay, I'm going to build a house. The house is going to cost me $300,000 to build, and I've got $2.75 in the bank. There's a problem. You're going to think about this first. You're going to say, have I got the means to finish this house? And so we do that in the natural. The Lord's saying, well, you've got to do that, spiritually speaking, as well. You've got to have a vision. You've got to believe that you can finish the race. You've got to believe that the Lord's going to help you to build, and that you are going to be able to have sufficient to finish. Because in our case, it's not of ourselves anyway. It's the Lord that gives us the material, if you like, to build on the nice hard ground of a threshing floor where the wind is, where the Spirit is, that's going to do that separating. Lest haply after he has laid the foundation and is not able to finish it, all that behold it begin to mock him, saying, this man began to build and was not able to finish. Gosh, how many people do we know in that boat who began to build and not able to finish? I would have to say for myself, it's in the many, many hundreds of people in that boat. Or what king going to make war against another king sits not down first and consults whether he be able with 10,000 to meet him that comes against him with 20,000. There's enemies out there. The odds here are 2 to 1 against. 20,000 against 10,000. 2 to 1 against. And you would think, well, that's not very good. If I'm the 10,000 army, I don't want to come up against the 20,000 army because I'll be wiped out. And the odds might be against us at times, but hallelujah, irrespective of the numbers, we've got the victory in Christ Jesus, because he that is with us is more than they that be with them. You might have 20,000 and I've only got 10,000, but I've got 10,000 in the Lord, and that's going to beat your 20,000 every day. Or else while the other is a great way off, he sends an ambassador and desires conditions of peace. We don't want to make peace with the world. Don't go out there and say, I surrender. We're going to make peace with you, world. We don't want to do that. We've got a peace. Ours passes all understanding. We don't want to send out to the enemy and compromise, looking for some condition how we might surrender there. So likewise, whosoever he be of you that forsakes not all that he has, he cannot be my disciple. There's a cost here, Jesus is saying. You've got to forsake everything that you have. Now, he's not talking about, going and living under a tree or something. You're not talking about those sorts of things, but we forsake all that we are, really, our natural self. We forsake all of those things, because if we don't, if we put any of those things first, he cannot be my disciple. Sure, we can enjoy stuff. We can, watch some sport or something, or a movie or something, or whatever we might do. Saturday night, we're going to attempt to sing some songs, and it'll be fun, and we'll have a good time. But, that's not all our life is about. It's the service, isn't it? Salt is good. They say salt's very good for you. It stops your arteries from going soft. One person got it. Very good. Salt is good, but if the salt have lost his savour, wherewith shall it be seasoned? Just because you were salty yesterday, just because you were building yesterday, just because you're on top of things yesterday, just because you're exercising faith yesterday, has no bearing really on today. Yes, it'll build you up, no doubt. But, I've known lots of people that came to the Friday night house meeting, gave a talk, and left the Lord the next morning. I've known people like that, talk to them myself. And so, did they count the cost and thought it was too high? They sat down to count the cost and thought, can't do it. The cost is too high. There's always going to be a cost, but it was too high for them. We think of Demas. I think we were talking about this the other day, Julie. Demas loving this present world. What was wrong with Demas? The cost. He realised all of a sudden, perhaps, the cost was very high for him. Got to have a vision of what we're building. We've got to be able to see it in our mind's eye. We've got to be able to see the big picture of what we're part of what we're in, of the incredible enormity of what the Lord has given to us. We won't turn to this. It got read out twice on Sunday, but Romans chapter 12. I beseech you therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, you present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable unto God, which is your reasonable service. There's a cost in being this living sacrifice. You will be sacrificing parts of that natural life that you have. Let's finish in Hebrews chapter 13. Hebrews 13, verse 12. Wherefore Jesus also, that he might sanctify the people with his own blood, suffered without the gate. Let us go forth therefore unto him without the camp, bearing his reproach. For here we have no continuing city, but we seek one to come. By him therefore let us offer the sacrifice of praise to God continually, that is the fruit of our lips, giving thanks to his name. I'll quote this in Hebrews 10. It says, this man, Jesus, after he had offered one sacrifice for sins forever, sat down on the right hand of God. And so Jesus' sacrifice of his natural life came at enormous personal cost, enormous personal pain and suffering that he went through. There was nothing in it for him other than he was doing the will of his Father, which I guess is a big thing. But as far for him personally, everything he did was for us, that we might have a chance to get ourselves to the threshing floor, to be sifted and separated. Sifted and separated. That's what we've been. David counted the cost, and he found the sacrifice worthy of the 50 shekels of silver. We've got to count the cost. There is a cost. We won't read it, but in Romans 8 it talks about what shall separate us from the love of God, shall tribulation and all these things that come against us. Is that cost? Do we understand that cost that we're paying, that living sacrifice, as it were? But having counted the cost, what we realise is that it's puny in compared to what we get. You know, if someone said, I'm going to give you a brand new Lamborghini and it's going to cost you $1,500, you'd think, bargain, you know. Let me see if I can scrape together this $1,500. Here you go, brand new Lamborghini. It's kind of what it's like. That the Lord has given us everything, and all he asked for in return was filthy rags and obedience and an understanding of the big picture that we're in, that we want to follow him, that the cost is worth far more than gold. In that Psalm 19, we sing it often, the law of the Lord is perfect. It talks about the law, the statutes, and the fear of the Lord. And what are they? More to be desired are they than gold, than much fine gold, sweeter also than honey and honeycomb. Moreover, by them is thy servant warned, and in keeping of them is great reward. Yes, there's a cost. Yes, we're told to count it. Yes, we're told to make sure that we're building and that we can finish it. Well, we can finish it, not because we're great, not because we've done all these amazing things. We can finish the race because the Lord is there giving us all the stuff that we need to finish it. We don't have to finish the race in our own strength. We just do it as unto the Lord. We build ourselves, we build the church, we recognise the cost. Boy, is it worth it, all the people said. Amen.